Over the past few conversations, we've heard from end users, solution providers, and other influencers who are creating and using technologies that are driving greater inclusion and access. Today, we're taking a step back to get a broader perspective on where the technology is headed and how it's evolving behind the scenes. I'm excited to welcome today's guest, Andrew Zignani. Andrew is the Senior Research Director for ABI Research's Strategic Technologies team. He specializes in the wireless connectivity market, and he's a big force behind the volumes and volumes of forecasts and insights and reports that ABI publishes to explore the evolution and long-term prospects and opportunities for wireless technology. So he's pretty much the perfect person to talk about how the role of wireless is growing in health and accessibility. Hello, Andrew. Thank you for spending time with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. It's a big growing market, and accessibility and health, I think, are two of the big ways in which wireless connectivity is solving real world problems, and it's quite a nice occasion to be able to share some insight into the growing opportunity here as well. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to hear your perspective. And as you know, before we get to that, we usually start by asking just a totally absurd question, just for grins and giggles. Are you game?
Always.
Would you rather sparkle like a blue disco ball when someone says Bluetooth,
hmm
or have blue confetti shoot out of your sleeves when you say it?
Ooh, I think the disco ball's a bit more sustainable these days. I think confetti is a bit harder to clear up, a bit messy and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, disco ball, bit of fun as well. You can get people dancing around you as well, which people normally do as well. So I can't really say otherwise. So yeah, I think the disco ball is the way forward.
Leave it to you to think about sustainability in your answer, which is awesome. From your vantage point as an analyst, what macro trends are defining the next phase of accessibility technology?
Firstly, there is a kind of growing awareness, I think, in the ability for assistive technologies and products to, but first, bring life-changing benefits for individuals. They can enable obviously greater independence, participation in society, greater inclusion, as well as having better prospects in education, employment, sports and leisure as well. In addition to just normal day-to-day function and activities as well. And I think alongside the personal benefits, you also have broader, I guess, macro trend is the socioeconomic enormous benefits that can bring from enabling people to participate more effectively in the labor market, enhancing productivity, improving employee well-being as well, reducing the general burden on things like caregivers, improving mental health for broadly individually and at society level as well, and also then delaying the need for long-term care, reprioritizing healthcare access to those who most need it as well. What you also see is the kind of regulatory incentives, I think, now as well, becoming more important. So in the EU, for example, you have the European Accessibility Act, which came into law, earlier this year. I think the aim of that is to drive the greater prevalence of more accessible products and services to the market, having fewer barriers for people accessing transport and other capabilities as well. So I think that's a key driver going forward, and I think we'll see more regulatory things down the line as well. We know that around the globe there are obviously billions of people that are already affected by a range of whether that's visual, mobility, speech, hearing challenges that have the potential to significantly impact on their quality of life. If you just look at the high level numbers, I think the WHO, the World Health Organization, they estimate 1.3 billion people, or 16% of the global population, experience a significant disability. At least 2.2 billion people have some form of visual impairment, and I think 10% of the US have a speech, language, or voice impairment as well. So you can see the numbers are very high. If you look at the UK, just the UK alone, I think 24% of the total population have a disability as well. So, very, very significant. I think also it's key to talk about, when we say significantly impacting their quality of life as well. So in the UK, recent data from the Office of National Statistics found that on average, people with disabilities rated much more poorly on all of the different personal well-being metrics. So that includes life satisfaction, it includes feelings that the things that they were doing were worthwhile in life, happiness and anxiety as well, and also more likely to report things like loneliness, as well as having lower degree percentages and lower employment prospects as well. And I think as well, we know that assistive products and technologies can bring these enormous benefits to people, not just to individuals, as I said, but society at large. And again, with these various demographic shifts, I think that the need and demand for these solutions is only going to grow in the coming years as well.
maybe we can dive into maybe like a device level or a solution level. What product categories are you seeing really gain traction in our current environment and looking to the future?
I think if you just look at, the visual side of things, there's 2.2 billion people with some form of visual impairment. We've seen, historically lots of, accessibility products like, whether that's, accessibility keyboards or screen reader products or text to voice products where Bluetooth can play a key role in that environment. Things like braille displays, that can compare with, smartphones and PCs and tablets to help, greater accessibility to education and information. And of course, yeah, as I touched upon, we have new products like smart glasses, which have tremendous potential to address multiple different limitations with people. So, for example, there's some glasses that can adjust autofocus automatically for directly impacting visual capabilities. Others that have kind of magnifier cameras built in top of that as well. And now we're seeing with Meta recently as well and other companies, fully integrated AI smart glasses where you can read text, you can describe the scene around you, you can have, you can detect objects and people, and even navigate in certain environments as well. So I think, that plus, real-time caption of conversations can be, really important to enabling some of those accessibility products. And that's just the visual side, right? So you have mobility on top of that as well. So, human interface devices in different form factors. So, for example, obviously wheelchair control systems, you have, assistive buttons and joysticks and things like that, assistive switches. Even things like smart mouth aware, where you can use sip and puff gestures to control devices as well for people with, larger scale disabilities as well. So I think those are some, extremely important innovations that we're seeing. And again, such a diversity of products. Even things like speech generating devices, text to speech as well, where Bluetooth is playing a key role in those. We've now seen neural wristbands that can enable, people with strong disabilities to control devices, more seamlessly as well. So I think, again, a huge diversity of products. I think there's a huge range of products on the market, and we expect, technologies like Bluetooth to help, drive further innovation in the years to come as well.
Speaking of further innovation, there has been recent innovation. How do you see a capability like Auracast shaping, what's possible in shared audio experiences, both in private settings and in public locations?
Yeah, so yeah, Overcast has obviously been one of the major incentives for Bluetooth accessibility. As I mentioned, I think earlier, I think according to the World Health Organization, there's more than 1.5 billion people, nearly 20% of the population living with hearing loss, and it's expected to grow to 2.5 billion by 2050. So that's a huge, increase in the number of people with some sort of hearing loss. And I think as well, we've already seen the role in which Bluetooth has played in accessibility and hearing loss over the last decade or so with Bluetooth-enabled hearing aids. I think obviously with the arrival of LE audio and Auracast broadcast audio, there's some significant improvements to, obviously audio quality. It's a new standard which is going to bring, much more wide scale deployment, at least in theory, we hope so. I think that's critical going forward. Obviously, we expect it, or ABI expect it to become a standard feature on smartphones and tablets and laptops and other devices. We're seeing it already being deployed in TVs for personal use, as well as other dedicated transmitters. And I think now we're finally starting to see that being deployed in public venues as well. So enabling things like, if I'm in an airport and I want to get into the gate announcement, that's extremely important to get access to that kind of level of information as well. I think, in a bar setting or whatever, if I want to listen to the football commentary, most of the time I don't because it's terrible. But if I want to, I can do that. So that's a good thing as well. But then obviously, just for other, environments, in lecture halls, in public theatres, could be cinemas and other things, transportation environments. These are all extremely critical to enabling people to have, much more normal lives as well. And I think that's definitely, one of the major ways in which we see the importance of that as well. And we're really excited to see, I think, how these solutions are going to evolve as well. So I think, not just for those who suffer with kind of hearing loss necessarily. So I think even those without specific hearing challenges can benefit from these Auracast deployed solutions. So again, I'm personally very excited about using it in public venues, in cinemas, maybe for different audio streams, or at sports bars, listening to different things as well. So yeah, I think, again, really excited to see the diversity of Auracast now finally coming to the market as well. I think one of the exciting things actually is that transition period as Auracast gets more deployed. There may be users who use it for their have watched it for the sports bar or whatever maybe, and eventually they develop hearing loss over time, and then they want to transition maybe to something, a dedicated hearing aid. But in that time, you're familiar with Auracast, you're familiar with how it works, you're familiar with Bluetooth, and I think that's what's really exciting is that kind of longer term trajectory where everyone's kind of familiar with these solutions on the market, and then people are using it not just for necessarily for hearing loss capabilities, but their everyday augmentation. And I think that's where it becomes really exciting, and it's there's less of a stigma. There's everyone's included in that, and some people are hesitant to use hearing aids for various reasons as well. So I think if we can open that up to more people, it becomes a much more seamless experience, and people feel like less of a burden as well.
Wireless audio is helping make a difference for accessibility for millions of people. You've shared the numbers; they're staggering. It's also having very real benefits for people's hearing health more generally too. How do you see Bluetooth's role in supporting hearing health and just overall wellness?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think hearing health obviously has wider impacts on mental health, cognitive function, and social interactions, relationships with other people. Numerous studies that that show the importance of hearing health to broader healthcare outcomes and life satisfaction and overall wellness. I think a study from Ulster University, I think, found that using hearing aids may reduce the risk of dementia for people with mild cognitive impairment. So that's extremely important. So yeah, I think, as the lines blur between the kind of traditional hearing aids and kind of even true wireless earbuds that may support Auracast, I think you may see over-the-counter solutions as well in different form factors. Hopefully those will kind of blur the lines between those different devices and then remove any further stigma between those with hearing loss and those who are just looking to take advantage of those accessibility features.
Yeah, definitely look forward to that day. Hearing is certainly one area where Bluetooth is helping us take care of our own, personal health. How have Bluetooth health and wellness devices, and when I think about those, I think about, fitness trackers, smartwatches, smart rings, right? How have those changed the way individuals can kind of actively manage, their health on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I think, obviously since the introduction, I think Bluetooth LE, I think back in 2010, I think it was now, whenever it was exactly, I think we've seen that explosion right in personal health and wellness devices that have been kind of smartphone centric, but they've really enabled us to better manage and understand our own health and activities. I think you see, as you mentioned, you touched upon some of those devices already, right? So smartwatches, fitness bands, smart rings now. These are all capable of monitoring not just steps now, but multiple different fitness and wellness metrics. So it could be heart rate, it could be sleep quality, stress, blood oxygen levels, temperature, skin, and that kind of thing. So all these different metrics on tiny form factors, which is becoming increasingly discrete and increasingly seamless in terms of day-to-day in interactions. So in terms of numbers, there's 250 million. I think smartwatches is expected to ship by 2030, Bluetooth-enabled smartwatches. And again, these can obviously optimize various those metrics. They can help to discover potential health issues in advance as well, early warnings, or stop them from worsening. Obviously now you have, obviously thanks to low power capabilities of Bluetooth, you have bracelets that can operate for 24 hours a day, maybe up to 2 weeks, which is tracking all sorts of different metrics, so you can wear them when you're sleeping. So you may not be able to, you may not know something's wrong with you when you're sleeping, but they could detect something as well, which is important. And again, smart rings are a new category. We see some huge growth potential in as well. So, much more discrete tracking. You can again wear them for up to a week. For in terms of one single charge as well. And even things like headsets now. I think some the latest AirPods. I think that they're now giving some kind of activity tracking as well. So these all show the kind of increasing intersection of day-to-day devices with healthcare tracking and monitoring as well. And we also see now big players like Samsung investing in smart home hubs, healthcare hubs, so that may aggregate lots of information from either dedicated devices or just your everyday wearables. Maybe then send it back to your healthcare provider as well to potentially analyze as well. So I think we expect to see a lot more of that. So people wearing more wearables, but then also transferring the data much more commonly as well on top of that.
You mentioned it's crazy to see the evolution of these devices, right? Like I think at one point it was kind of a novelty to be able to, track your steps, right? And then now these personal health and wellness devices have evolved to the point where we're seeing, more and more connected health solutions move kind of from a nice to have to
Mhm.
a clinical, necessity at times. What has push them over that threshold, like, to emerge as, medical grade
Mhm.
devices, and what solutions and applications have kind of led the way there?
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point, right? As you said, it's shifted to these devices being a necessity. I think, firstly, I think the probably what the biggest driver is that various healthcare systems around the world have, these enormous different challenges, right? So you have, the rising cost of healthcare, you have underfunding of healthcare in certain regions, you have outdated infrastructure, provision is uneven depending on which part of the country or region you're in as well. So I think that's a big challenge. You have big backlogs from COVID causing problems as well. And again, some of the earlier things that we talked about, the things like the demographic shifts, the aging populations of the world, many now who have serious health problems, 6 in 10 Americans have at least one chronic disease. I think 1 in 8 adults by 2050 expected to have living with diabetes. Adult obesity is growing as well. So as people live longer, it's unsurprising that people have more conditions and have more challenges facing them as well. So I think that's definitely a primary driver. There's also shortages in terms of staff and everything else for healthcare providers as well. So we see various healthcare organizations start to, look at how these wirelessly connected devices can really deliver a much stronger patient experience, better outcomes as well, not needing for them to travel anymore or miss appointments, reduce the risk of infection by traveling to hospital as well is another benefit as well. And I think again in the UK, the NHS is very very much looking at how remote patient monitoring solutions, remote diagnostic solutions, various other devices are really starting to help with things like early detection of symptoms as well, freeing up time for healthcare staff on top of that as well, and also from the device level, right? These devices are extremely impressive, right? Extremely small form factors. You couldn't really be able to do it without low power Bluetooth. I think is the one thing. So it's taken time for these technologies to emerge, and now they've emerged. You have these low power Bluetooth solutions, but then you also have everyone's got a smartphone device, right? They can then share that data with, and then that can be then transferred to a healthcare provider. So I think healthcare providers are waking up to that capability. There's more devices on the market, and we see that across a range of applications, whether that's continuous glucose monitors, and I'm sure we'll talk about these in more detail, but there's a whole host of medical devices, medical grade devices that healthcare providers are using to track these various metrics that can provide, real strong healthcare outcomes for people.
You talked about how these small form factor
Mhm.
devices, personal devices are really taking hold. I'm curious too how there are solutions just within healthcare settings, healthcare environments that are also helping, increase maybe patient safety or
Mhm.
care team efficiency. Can you talk a little bit about how those solutions in whether it be hospitals or clinics or whatever the case might
Yeah.
be are another way where healthcare providers are able to improve and evolve the care that they give.
Yeah, another great question. I think, one of the main ways in which obviously Bluetooth has probably most positively impacted patient safety and healthcare personnel safety, and also their efficiency as well, right, is through the long-term presence of what we call real-time locating systems, so RTLS solutions. These are, very much well established. They can, help to enable, they're deployed across a wide range of hospital settings already from many different providers. And as you said, in hospitals, in clinics, in nursing homes, outpatient facilities as well. And these can bring, huge operational efficiencies. They can reduce the prevalence of stolen assets, which is a huge, cost to many different healthcare settings. They can improve patient safety and well-being. They can help to reduce the wait times in certain environments, improve the satisfaction of patients as well. Yeah, so even if you have, for example, a typical hospital, right? So I think 10 to 20% of a hospital's assets are lost or stolen during their lifetime, which is a huge burden. It can cost millions of dollars for these environments. Having, either patient trackers or asset tracking tags on valuable equipment can help, reduce that burden. It can also help, staff when they're trying to find an item. I've lost this particular piece of equipment. I need this. I need to find this. It can cause serious problems in terms of healthcare, outcomes and delivery as well. And there's a whole range of Bluetooth tags and wearables and bracelets for both staff and patients as well. These are these are very small battery powered solutions as well, thanks to Bluetooth's low power capabilities. That can enable, much more, much more efficient environments. And they're also used for, hygiene enforcement as well as another key trend we're seeing as well. So making sure that, personnel are washing their hands at the right place at the right time using proximity beacons. So many different ways in which you can improve not just the safety, but also the efficiency of these different healthcare settings as well.
I'm curious because you've mentioned the importance of low power wireless and the role
Mhm.
that that plays in all of this. How is standardization helping to kind of bridge these fragmented solutions so that, users get just a very, reliable, repeatable experience across these different devices and places?
Yeah, I think standardization is key, not just in obviously the healthcare settings, but all kind of building environments or all kind of settings, right? And in terms of enabling scalable solutions where people have the choice to buy products from, multiple different vendors. And I think if you look at many healthcare settings already, right, you already have a kind of backbone network infrastructure, which leverages Bluetooth traditionally for indoor wayfinding. But then if you have, because it's Bluetooth standard, right, you can then build other things on top of that, whether that's, wireless building sensors that can monitor, temperature, whether that's electronic shelf labels, which can, track different, you can keep track of different items and update things and make sure that things are in place. RTLS solutions is another one, obviously a key standard that, that Bluetooth brings to the table through whether that's direction finding or the traditional solutions as well. Now channel sounding adding to the mix as well. Um, and then things like, network lighting control as well. So having a standard there helps, improve the rollout of Bluetooth commercial lighting, which can then integrate into sensors and other capabilities as well. So you can see how, having these multiple different use cases and standards, can significantly increase the ROI of an investment in Bluetooth, infrastructure. You have, much greater product choice. You can obviously reduce the cost of these solutions over time as well as more and more products are available. And I think as well, if you have a standard, right, you can enable different vendors to innovate on different aspects, but also enable those facilities to take advantage of that innovation. So if you're locked into a single vendor, right, you can only get the product from a single vendor. That product may not be the best for your environment. And I think the key for standards, any standards really, is to improve the scalability, improve the interoperability, but give that freedom of choice, for whether that's the enterprise, whether that's a retail environment, whether that's a healthcare setting, to have that freedom of choice and not be locked in and enable to scale up that rollout across different settings.
I'm curious. One more area where I want to
Mhm.
explore with you is if we move out of kind of the healthcare setting itself,
Yeah.
there are some really inventive solutions coming to market that are helping create just healthier public spaces. Can
Mm-hmm.
you talk a little bit about the trends you're seeing in that area?
Yeah, it's obviously in addition to obviously RTLS, which is discussed, we also see Bluetooth creating spaces that can foster, better health and improve the well-being of individuals as well as communities. I think obviously, having things like improved air quality, optimizing energy usage, ensuring the right temperature for people and comfort and satisfaction. These are all huge trends that we're seeing a lot of innovation and investment in recent years as well. So that can be, things like, as I touched on, air quality monitoring is one big example where you have potentially Bluetooth-enabled sensors which can detect, CO2 levels or other pollution, air quality issues as well. The idea is that not only, reduces the risk of, outbreaks and disease and things like that, and things like COVID, obviously, is a part of the COVID response, but also just, having cleaner air can increase people's comfort, reduce, the prevalence of kind of sick building syndrome, um, and also just enhance their productivity and satisfaction of being in that environment as well, particularly as we look, obviously, people trying to return to offices going forward as well. So I think that's one element. There's also things like, occupancy sensing as well, which can better monitor the utilization of buildings as well. Being able to determine whether, if the building is over capacity, help, book rooms and optimize that and optimize then the temperature of the environment as well. I think also one of the key drivers for the broader, comfort in buildings is commercial lighting control, so network lighting control, smart lighting, if you want to call it that. Lighting has been statistically proven to improve comfort, well-being, productivity in many different ways. So I think there's a statistic from Bosch. I think they said that 28% there's a 28% improvement in working conditions just more broadly that can be brought about by proper lighting conditions. And I think, obviously with, solutions such as Bluetooth network lighting control, the arrival of Bluetooth mesh from numerous different players can really, help to accelerate the transformation of different buildings. And I think it's a combination, right? It's not just one element that will bring it to the table. It's not just, enabling greater sustainability. It's not just occupancy detection. It's not just air quality monitoring. It's a combination of all those and how they work together. And that really goes back to the standard component, right? So if you have that deployment of a Bluetooth backbone network infrastructure, you can then enable that lighting service that's talking to the sensor capabilities, that's talking to the occupancy sensor or whatever that may be as well on top of that. So you can see how all these ways can, bring about, better, cleaner, more efficient, safer, more comfortable experiences for personnel and staff in that environment.
Just to kind of wrap things up, Andrew, what's your long-term vision for how inclusive technology can continue to reshape, public participation, health, and inclusion?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a combination of health and accessibility, right? It's not just one or the other. I think we'll see technologies bring multiple benefits, right? So, for example, I think aging in place is a prime example of that, where you need a combination of accessibility, devices, whether that's hearing aids, whether that's, maybe exoskeletons or prosthetics, whatever it may be, and they can be combined to help, enable people, live at home more comfortably. And I think that's a key trend going forward, right? So reducing the burden on care settings as well is going to be extremely important in the years to come. I know that in the UK they're extremely overwhelmed in terms of demand, and there's lots of waiting lists, very long-term waiting lists as well. I think enabling, people to live, healthier, but also at home and, be comfortable and be able to communicate with their friends and relatives, into their 80s and 90s and beyond, right? I think is extremely important, trend and enable people to have much more, dignified lives throughout their whole lifespan. And I think the key as well is also at the early level as well. So giving people access, to hearing aids when they're younger as well can improve their overall, long-term prospects as well. And I think that's the fundamental thing. It has to be from all angles, right? So not just looking at, from the start of life, but also at the end of life, and also how these can transition throughout various stages of your life as well, as you may need more and more assistive products or healthcare related products as well. And I think that growing that awareness and familiarity with Bluetooth technology and what it can do for these, enabling these solutions is going to be, critical going forward. And we know of the, the unique benefits that Bluetooth can provide. It's low power, right? You have a ubiquitous presence in mobile devices that you can then connect and offload data to. I think those are really compelling advantages for Bluetooth, as well as the standardization and interoperability and adding new features continuously. Big diverse member ecosystem are all driving different healthcare incentives as well. So you can just point to the last 10 years or so where you've seen a rapid expansion in healthcare and accessibility devices for Bluetooth technology. And I'm really excited to see what the next 5-10 years will hold for this. AI is obviously a very kind of overhyped concept at the moment, but I think it will hopefully bring some real benefits to these in terms of early diagnosis as well. And Bluetooth has a critical role to play at the edge as well in enabling these low power sensor devices or wearable devices as well. And I think the closer you can have that integration of connectivity and technology with healthcare providers, I think that's going to be a big driver going forward as well. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's to come in the future.
Well, Andrew, I really appreciate your perspective on these really, really important topics, health and access and inclusion. It's been great talking with you, and I really appreciate the time.
No, thank you. And it's always a pleasure, connecting with the Bluetooth SIG to discuss these innovations. I think there's, exciting times ahead for the technology. We can see the traction across many different, devices and the innovation that's happening both at the Bluetooth level, but also from solution providers as well, is driving such interesting ways of enabling new healthcare devices and accessibility devices. And I think I'm just excited to see what the next few years will bring. I'm excited to see the Oralcast roll out and use it myself as well in more commonly, and just see how people are leveraging these different accessibility tools to improve their lives. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is how wireless technologies can really bring significant benefits to people. And I think that's extremely important, as we discuss technology in the future.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Thank you.